My name is Marcus Reed. I'm 41 years old. I own a mid-sized cybersecurity firm in Austin, Texas. I've handled high-profile breaches, corporate espionage cases, and multi-million-dollar fraud investigations. But I still couldn't detect the one person who hacked my life from the inside. Pause. It wasn't a hacker from Russia or China. It wasn't a disgruntled employee or a corporate rival. No, it was the woman I married. She didn't use malware. She didn't need to. All she had to do was say the words, "I love you." And I handed over everything, my trust, my loyalty, my money, and my future, with no firewall in place. Beat. I found out she drained 3 of our joint accounts in a single afternoon. She sold my watch collection, including my father's Rolex, without even a conversation. She moved out while I was on a business trip and left a note taped to the fridge. Just 2 words, "I'm done." Long pause. Soft background piano music could start under voice here. Then she blocked me. Phone, email, social, everything. As if I never existed. 7 years together, and suddenly I was a ghost. But what she didn't realize was that even though she cut me out of her life, she never removed herself from my company's payroll. You see, when she launched her small fashion line 3 years ago, I added her to my business as a remote consultant. It gave her consistent income, benefits, a sense of contribution. And when things got rocky between us, I never updated the records. So even after she disappeared, she kept getting paid. And that was her biggest mistake. Pause. Because while she blocked me, I was still signing her checks. Cliffhanger beat. Fade music slightly for impact. Jenna and I met at a tech networking event in San Antonio. She was this vibrant, confident, free-spirited woman with a sketchpad in one hand and a latte in the other. I was one of the keynote speakers, the guy in a tailored suit talking about cybersecurity firewalls. She walked right up to me and said, "You look like a man who hasn't lived until he's tasted burnt almond caramel." Soft chuckle. I had no idea what that meant. But I smiled. And somehow, I was hooked. We got coffee the next morning, then dinner that night. Within 6 months, we moved in together. And by the end of year 1, we were married. I thought I had it all. Pause. She brought color into my gray, structured world. I brought her stability and a sense of calm. She'd scribble dress sketches late into the night, sipping wine with jazz playing. I'd sit next to her, reviewing firewall breach reports. Somehow, it worked. When she told me she wanted to start her own fashion line, I didn't hesitate. I built her a home studio, funded her marketing, and added her to my company's payroll under the title Creative Marketing Consultant. It gave her a steady income while she built her dream, and I was proud to support her. I used to say, behind every strong man is a stronger woman. I really believed she was that woman. Shift slowly towards subtle red flags. For years, it felt perfect. But looking back now, there were cracks in the picture I didn't want to see. She started taking more solo trips, saying she needed time for creative inspiration. I trusted her. Her phone habits changed. She used to scroll openly beside me. Now she always kept its screen down. I once noticed a message pop up, just a glimpse, a name I didn't recognize, and a heart emoji. She laughed it off, said it was a designer friend from a workshop. Beat. Soft tension in voice now. I believed her. Because that's what you do when you're in love. You don't assume the worst. You silence that voice in your head and tell yourself, she'd never do that to me. I remember one night, we were watching some old sitcom reruns, and she looked over and said, "You're my piece, Marcus. Don't ever change." I smiled, not knowing that within a year, she'd become my storm. Pause. Tone changes slightly toward regret. We had our fights, like every couple, but nothing major. Or so I thought. She always seemed restless, like something inside her was untamed, still searching. I figured she just needed time, maybe success, maybe fulfillment. I didn't think it was another man. We had this tradition. Every Sunday, brunch at the same local cafe. She always ordered strawberry crepes. I'd get black coffee and eggs Benedict. Then one Sunday, she said she was tired. Slept in. Then skipped the next one. Then the next. The waitress eventually asked me if Jenna was okay. I told her she was just busy. But I knew something had shifted. She used to call me her hero. Then one day, she just stopped. Long pause. Soft emotional music fades slightly. I thought it was burnout. I thought it was stress. I thought if I worked harder, showed up more, gave her space, things would return to normal. But I was wrong. Because while I was holding our life together, she was already planning her exit. I can't tell you the exact moment when things began to unravel. But looking back, the signs were everywhere. It started with little things. The way she no longer looked up from her phone when I walked into the room. How she kept her screen turned away, always locked. She never used to care about passcodes. Now, her phone was practically Fort Knox. She began working late more often. Except her business didn't have a physical location. Her studio was in our house. So where exactly was she going? I didn't ask at first. That was my mistake. I gave her space. I believed in trust, maybe too much. She became colder in conversation, less affectionate. Short answers, dry responses. The kind of change you don't want to admit you're seeing, because if you say it out loud, it becomes real. I'd come home with her favorite takeout. She'd barely touch it. I'd ask about her day. She'd say it was fine and retreat to the bedroom. Beat. I once walked into the kitchen late at night and saw her texting, laughing quietly. She didn't even notice I was there. When I asked who it was, she quickly said, "Oh, just Marcy from the boutique." Except Marcy had moved to Florida 2 months earlier. I didn't confront her. I didn't even ask again. I just started watching. I checked our joint credit card statement one night, something I rarely did. That's when I noticed a few odd charges. 2 dinners at expensive steakhouses. A purchase from a men's clothing store. A luxury hotel suite in San Antonio on a Wednesday. Pause. Breathe in deeply. I remember sitting in my office that night, staring at those charges, trying to come up with a story that made them innocent. Maybe she was helping a friend. Maybe it was for a client. But deep down I knew. So I started digging. Carefully. Quietly. I restored an old backup of her iPad. One she hadn't used in months. And what I found confirmed every silent fear I had tried to ignore. Photos. Messages. Bookings. And a name that appeared over and over again, Aaron. He wasn't just a fling. He was a plan. Their messages weren't just flirtation. They were logistics. Discussions about when she'd finally be free. Comments about my routines. What time I left for work, how often I traveled, how much I was paying her monthly. She even joked that she was using his money to build her real life. I guess his was me. But still, I said nothing. Because the moment I opened my mouth, The game would begin. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. Then, one night, her phone lit up at exactly 2:07 a.m. She was asleep beside me. I was awake, pretending to scroll through emails. The message popped up. I miss you, baby. Only a few more weeks. I didn't touch her phone. I didn't need to. I just laid there, eyes wide open, heart pounding in my chest. She rolled over a few minutes later, still asleep, and rested her head on my shoulder. Pause. Heavy emotional beat. And that's when I knew. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just a transaction. A countdown. A bridge to a life she was building with someone else. But here's the thing. When you betray a man like me, someone who deals in data, patterns, silence, and timing, you don't see the hit coming. Because you think you've already won. And that is when you lose everything. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe beside me, knowing every breath was a lie. That morning, I made her coffee. Just like always. She kissed my cheek, just like always. But something in me had shifted. Not rage. Not grief. Just silence. Pause. The next night, I waited until she fell asleep again. I opened my secure laptop, one she didn't even know existed. Pulled up every financial record I had access to. I wasn't looking for more proof of the affair. I already had that. I was looking for vulnerabilities. And oh boy, did she leave doors open. I discovered she'd funneled money out of one of our joint accounts into a separate business account, one I never approved, never saw, and wasn't legally linked to. But guess who set it up for her? My own firm's junior accountant 2 years ago, as a favor to the boss's wife. I knew then she had been planning this for years. Not weeks. Not months. Years. But it wasn't the money that broke me. It was the email. Buried in a folder titled Supplier Quotes, I found a draft. Never sent. But written carefully. It read, "Once Marcus signs the transfer form, we're free. He's so predictable, he'll never see it coming. And if he does, I'll play innocent. I always do." Long pause. Music fades into silence. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her. I started planning. That next morning, she left for a weekend retreat with her design group. Said she needed to clear her head. I smiled. I told her I was proud of her for prioritizing self-care. The moment she pulled out of the driveway, I got to work. I called my attorney, a specialist in digital asset protection, prenups, and corporate fraud. I didn't give him the full story yet, just said I needed options. Quietly, I reached out to a private investigator I'd used for corporate cases. Gave him one photo, one license plate number, and one instruction: I don't want dirt. I want everything. And most importantly, I created a clone payroll shell for her consultant position in my company. Why? Because if she was going to keep cashing checks, then I was going to use that paper trail to bring her entire scheme down. You see, when a woman like her thinks she's smarter than the man she's robbing, she never checks if the floor she's standing on is made of glass. The game had changed. She just didn't know it yet. Final beat. And that weekend, the weekend she thought she was off with her soulmate in a luxury resort suite I unknowingly paid for, was the weekend I started building the fire that would burn it all down. Jenna had no idea. Not a clue that I knew everything. That I had the texts, the email drafts, the location data, the credit card statements, the receipts. She was still smiling, laughing, kissing me on the cheek, all while slipping out every other night to network. I let her, because I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to scream, or cry, or beg her to stay. I was going to destroy her, with silence. I started with the bank accounts. Over the course of 4 weeks, I restructured every joint financial asset we had. I moved my earnings into an untouchable trust. I disconnected her name from every major investment. She was still technically on payroll, yes, but the moment I found out about Erin, I created a second ghost account under her name. One that logged every payment, every direct deposit, every tax form. Why? Because it would prove, in court, that she was being paid without actually doing any work. That alone would destroy her claim to any business stake. That's called payroll fraud, and it's a felony. Next, I documented every time she left the house. My investigator sent me photos, her and Erin at restaurants, hotels, even a cabin up north they rented for a week. I didn't tell him to follow them. I told him to watch. And he did. Every check-in, every hug, every kiss, all on camera. Then came the digital layer. I rebuilt our smart home data, door logs, thermostat usage, security footage. She never thought I kept backup drives. But I did. And those files showed exactly when she left, when she came home, and who entered our house when I wasn't there. Yes, he had been in our home. Multiple times. The house that I'd bought. The office she worked in. The bed we shared. I remember staring at one particular image, him holding a wine glass in our kitchen, wearing my slippers. Pause. That's when the rage came back. But not for long. Because that rage turned into fuel. I consulted with a forensic accountant. Gave him a project under NDA. Told him to find every transaction tied to her business account. And guess what? Not only had she been transferring funds from my company's payroll into her side brand, but she was also using it to pay for his lifestyle. Flights, electronics, rent on a second apartment, all under brand influencer outreach. Erin wasn't just the affair. He was on my dime, living on my effort, my loyalty, my silence. Now here's where it gets fun. Remember that ghost payroll account? I forwarded all that documentation, quietly, to my legal team and asked one question. Can this be used to void spousal financial rights in a contested divorce? Answer: absolutely. From there, I made my final move. I created a shell corporation. One that mirrored her fashion line's name, but trademarked it first. Registered in a different state, with public-facing documents and federal protections. Why? Because I knew what was coming. She was planning to file, to leave, to walk away with half, and start her new life using the empire I built. Now, she wouldn't even have the brand name. She had no idea I was months ahead of her. She had no idea I was watching, tracking, waiting. She thought I'd never fight back. But she forgot. I've been trained to win wars without raising my voice. Then came the day. A Friday. She came home early. Nervous. Said she needed to talk. I already knew. There was a manila envelope in her bag, divorce papers. She opened her mouth to speak. But I stopped her. I said, you first. Always. And then she handed me the papers. Calmly. Like she was gifting me a candle. I smiled. Looked at them. And said, I was expecting this. I've been preparing too. Her smile faded just a little. But she had no idea what was coming next. She'd filed for divorce the following Monday. Told her lawyer she was entitled to 50% of all business assets, equity, and real estate, including the house. She asked for alimony too, said she sacrificed her career to support mine. But what she didn't know was this. I had already filed a counter petition with 80 pages of documentation. Her affair, her financial theft, her payroll fraud, the second apartment, the wire transfers, and the security footage of Erin entering my home while I was out of town. I also attached a forensic report showing how she used company funds for personal trips, all while being paid, on paper, as a full-time consultant. And remember the trademark I registered? Yeah. I served her a cease and desist letter the same day. She could no longer use the brand name she had built her online following around. Why? Because legally, it was mine. Now came the hearing. We sat in the courtroom. Her wearing all white. Erin standing in the back, trying to act invisible. I didn't look at her. Not once. But I did look directly at the judge when my attorney stood up and said, "We'd like to enter audio, visual, and written evidence of the defendant's breach of fiduciary trust and marital misconduct." She turned pale. Her lawyer leaned over and whispered furiously. But it was too late. The judge accepted it all. Listened to the audio. Watched the footage. Read the email. Read the payment records. You could feel the room shift. Even Erin slipped out halfway through the hearing, like a rat escaping a sinking ship. At the end of the day, the judge didn't just deny her claims. He awarded me full ownership of the house, the business, and denied spousal support altogether. She was left with nothing. No home. No company. No cash flow. No brand. Even the apartment she was secretly paying for? I sent a letter to the landlord that week. Turns out I had co-signed on it when she said it was for a remote studio project. I canceled the lease. She had to move back in with her parents in a different state. 3 months later, her Instagram disappeared. So did Erin. Rumor was he jumped ship the moment the money stopped coming in. Meanwhile, I rebuilt everything. Quietly. Rebranded the company under a new name. Shifted the focus. Hired new people. People I trusted. And I never spoke her name again. You see, revenge isn't about screaming in someone's face. It's not about throwing punches or setting things on fire. It's about letting the truth speak. Letting reality do the talking. And reality did. Loud and clear. It's been 2 years now. The house is still mine. But I did some renovations. Not just to change the look, but to change the energy. I got rid of the bed we shared. Repainted the walls. Even tore out the floorboards in the living room and replaced them myself. People say healing takes time. I say it takes effort. Intentional effort to not let your past shape your future. I still run the company. It's smaller now, but healthier. We're profitable. But more importantly, we're honest. The people I work with respect me not because I sign their checks, but because I show up. Every day. With purpose. I've started mentoring 2 veterans trying to launch their own businesses. I tell them the same thing I learned the hard way. Build something you love, but protect it like it's already under attack. As for love, it took me a long time to even consider the idea again. I went to therapy. I traveled. I spent weekends fishing with my dad, walking trails, watching sunrises in silence. I rebuilt myself, not as a husband, or a CO, or a man wronged, but as someone who survived. And today, I'm okay. Not perfect, Not healed all the way, but okay. People ask me if I ever miss her. If I ever think about what could have been. I don't. Because she took everything, yes. But not my soul. Not my values. Not the man I've spent a lifetime trying to be. And from that, I rebuilt everything. Not for revenge. Not for pride. Not to prove her wrong. But for me. For the quiet peace I feel now, waking up alone, and knowing I'm finally free. If you've ever been betrayed, left behind, or broken down, just remember. You're allowed to rebuild. You're allowed to rise. And you don't owe anyone an explanation. Subscribe if you believe in rising from the ashes. This is Alex Monroe, and I'm still here.